Hi team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Ukraine War News Update, third part thereof, and 5th of December 2023. I know I'm producing too much content today, so sorry not sorry, it's just one of those days. I'll get back to normal tomorrow. So let's really run through the geopolitics section quickly. I did an elongated video for my last video due to what's going on in Congress. Anyway, aside from that issue, Spain for 2023 purchased a record amount of Russian gas in its history, according to El Mundo. In the first 9 months of 2023, Madrid increased its imports of Russian gas 6 times compared to 2018 and reached a level equivalent to the total volume for the whole of 2022. It is noted that so far the US has not been able to replace Russia in the Spanish gas supply market. So there are these issues. It's kind of understandable. You need gas from somewhere. Where do you get it from? Or can you replace the demand for gas with demand for some other kind of energy? So hopefully Spain will be thinking about its energy mix as well as looking for alternatives. But absence of alternatives, this will happen, I guess. It's certainly something that needs to be looked at straight away. I'm sure people are. Right, massive worry here. Sellafield, which is a nuclear site in the UK, power plant, has been hacked by groups linked to China, Russia and China. Now, the first thing I'm going to say here is the kind of, I don't know if it's a philosophical debate as to what are cyber attacks, if not a sort of declaration of war. I've talked about this previously, and we kind of think cyber is kind of semi-aggressive. It is aggressive, obviously aggressive towards a nation, but it's like it's not like shooting people on a battlefield. Well, why not if it achieves the same function? So, for example, if Russia were to bomb a hospital in the UK, we would see that as an outright attack on the UK by Russia, and we would go to war. But if it did a cyber attack on a hospital's facilities that shut the hospital down and had the same function, in both instances, assuming like the bombing didn't kill anyone outright, right? It destroyed the infrastructure. So in both instances, you would have the infrastructure being taken out. One through a cyber attack on completely taking out the IT and say it takes out the energy to the hospital, right? The hospital can't function. And the other one is blowing up the substation at the hospital so the energy can't get to the hospital and it can't function. One is an act of war, one is cyber warfare. One we would go to war with Russia and one we wouldn't. What is the difference? And to me, there's functionally no difference. And I know the UK will be doing its own cyber warfare and whatnot as well, but I think we need to look at this. So if Russia and China have hacked Sellafield, a nuclear power plant, we should be saying, well, that's it, guys. That's the red line. You've crossed the red line. See, in Ukraine, yeah, you can have everything you need, mate, from us. This is like we are at. Why not? We're at war. Why not put NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine if Russia can be definitively linked to hacking of here, Sellafield, the US in other places? So let's have a look at this. So The Guardian has discovered that authorities do not know exactly when the IT systems were first compromised. But sources said breaches were first detected as far back as 2015, when experts realized sleeper malware, software that can lurk and be used to spy on or attack systems, had been embedded in Sellafield's computer networks. I mean, the problem with Sellafield computer network is it is not fit for purpose. So this is been found to be woefully inadequate in terms of cybersecurity. So the full extent of any data loss and any ongoing risks to systems was made harder to quantify by Sellafield's failure to alert nuclear regulators for several years, sources said. The revelations have emerged in nuclear leaks, a year-long Guardian investigation into cyber hacking, radioactive contamination and toxic workplace culture at Sellafield. The site has the largest store of plutonium on the planet and is a sprawling rubbish dump for nuclear waste from weapons programs and decades of atomic power generation. Right, this is a massive article, by the way, and it is jam-packed full of info. So I'm only going to dip into a couple of paragraphs. But this is another reason why I appreciate The Guardian. They do really decent bits of proper investigative journalism. It's why I support them. They just do good work. Like, where is the Daily Mail? Where is the Daily Express after, between moaning about immigrants or about Brexit or whatever? Where's your decent investigative journalism looking into what the frick is going on behind the scenes with how the world works, right? Stop selling fear and actually do some work of reporting some really important stuff. Sorry, rant over there, but I had to get that out. Guided by armed police, it also holds emergency planning documents to be used should the UK come under foreign attack or face disaster. Built more than 70 years ago and formerly known as Windscale, it made plutonium for nuclear weapons during the Cold War and has been taken in radioactive waste from other countries, including Italy and Sweden. The Guardian can also disclose that Sellafield, which has more than 11,000 staff, was last year placed into a form of special measures for consistent failings on cybersecurity, according to the sources at the Office for Nuclear Regulation, ONR, and Security Services. The watchdog is also believed to be preparing to prosecute individuals there for cyber failings. The ONR confirmed Sellafield is failing to meet its cyber standards, but declined to comment on the breaches or claims of a cover-up. But on the moral side of things, that is victim blaming. That needs to be sorted out. Of course, we need to get the right defences in place. However, that doesn't excuse Russia doing what they have done, or Russia and China doing what they have done. And as you can see, I'm skipping through most of this. Cyber attack and cyber espionage by Russia and China are among the biggest threats to the UK, according to security officials. The most recent National Risk Register, an official document that outlines the key hazards the UK could face, includes a cyber attack on civil nuclear infrastructure. Attackers from hostile states have targeted allies in the Five Eyes. So Five Eyes is US, Canada, UK, New Zealand, Australia. Intelligence sharing community service in recent years. The US has been attacked with its government agencies, including its energy department, targeted via file transfer software in June this year. Again, what are we doing now? It could be that we don't get all up in arms because we're doing exactly the same to Russia, to China. I don't know, but this does annoy me. Anyway, huge amounts of data in here, lots of stuff to talk about, but this is a worry. This is a very sensitive establishment in the UK being hacked by Russian and Chinese entities. Now, I guess for them it's a case of plausible deniability, isn't it? And that could be what they're hanging on, which is like, oh yeah, okay, so it's been linked to Russia, yeah, but it was the Russian government, or was it some randos? Okay, we'll go and we'll try and look into that and make sure it doesn't happen again. Okay, leaders of the 27 EU member states will decide on the 14th and 15th of this month to start talks with Ukraine and Moldova on joining the Union. According to one EU diplomat, reaching an agreement to begin negotiations with Ukraine will be a very, very difficult task, in particular because of Hungary's position. Well, what is that? Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orbán, once again called on the chairman of the European Council, Charles Michel, at the summit of the EU leaders on the 14th and 15th, not to bring up the start of negotiations for the accession of Ukraine. He doesn't want it to happen, and I guess there's going to have to be unanimity there. If you don't get unanimity, and I don't know what Robert Fico from Slovakia thinks these days, it's going to be hard for Ukraine, that's for sure. Hungarian foreign minister confirms Poroshenko. So this is Petro Poroshenko, the previous president of Ukraine, being blocked from leaving the country because he was going to meet with Viktor Orban. What's going on there? So Poroshenko has raised money and raised a lot of money to pay for equipment for the Ukrainian army. So he's doing a good job there. But is that a kind of cover up to what's going on elsewhere? In this case, going to meet Viktor Orban. So the SBU presented the plans for meeting Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban as a reason for barring Poroshenko from leaving the country. Hungarian foreign ministers claimed on the 4th that the planned meeting was initiated by Poroshenko and noted that Orban is happy to negotiate with anybody, including foreign ex-leaders. Negotiate what? What's going on there? So if that has been confirmed and Poroshenko was going to meet there and it wasn't sanctioned by the government, then I think actually Zelensky has every right to bar him from doing that. Or at least, be there with him and do that together as part of a national negotiation with Hungary on whatever you're negotiating with Hungary. It looks very dodgy. Brazil will invite Putin to the G20 summit, Group of 20, but refuse to guarantee that he will not be arrested there. Interesting. Brazilian President Lula da Silva recalled that Brazil is a signatory to the International Criminal Court Convention and has a responsibility to uphold it. Wow, okay, so that's sitting on the fence. Interesting. I guess Putin won't go. which is, again, another example of that kind of pariah state. Putin is threatening Latvia that they will be treated, quote, with the same dirt-like attitude. So what's the context? Around 3,500 Russian citizens in Latvia have received letters from the Migration Authority asking them to leave the country. The government body said on September the 21st that they were people who hadn't submitted documents to extend a permanent residence permit or hadn't registered for a Latvian language test by September the 1st. They must leave Latvia by November the 30th, it said. An amendment passed by Parliament in 2022 tightened residency rules for Russian citizens in response to Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. To continue living in Latvia, they must apply for permanent resident status and prove a decent knowledge of the Latvian language. So I guess, this isn't like right, we're going to get rid of all Russians now. This is, we're going to uphold the laws which are already in place and have been in place previously, and then were tightened, and you could argue about the tightening in 2022. But that's the rules. You literally, you're not abiding by the rules for getting getting permission to live here. So you don't have permission to live here. So we're going to send you back to Russia. Now, Putin answers this in the following way. So he says there are probably quite a few now. If they pursue such a policy against people who wanted to live in this or that country, worked there, created some welfare for this country, and these people are treated like dirt, then eventually such countries will face the same dirt-like attitude inside their own countries. Hang on. Like, how do you treat foreign entities in Russia? Just interested in how you treat them. Are they able to say what they like? Are they able to do what they like? Are they given the same rights as they're afforded in Latvia? Just wondering about that, because I don't think you have a leg to stand on, Putin. Representatives of the Russian Defense Ministry continue to expand military cooperation in Africa. A delegation with Russian Deputy Defense Minister Yevkurov arrived in Niger. Now, this is adding on to the worry I was expressing when doing the live stream with John Sweeney. Please go and check that out. Great live stream yesterday. I was talking about all these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle around the world where Russia are in the ascendancy, where opinions are changing towards being pro-Russian. You can look into Europe itself with regard to Slovakia, with regard to Hungary, with regard to possibly Netherlands to some extent, and all these countries moving in certain directions in Russia. You can also look at the US with kind of not quite so pro-Ukrainian views amongst certain politicians. You can look at what's going on in Africa across the Sahel with all of those coups that appear to have fingerprints of Putin over them. You can look at the Belt and Road Initiative going on in Asia, and with China's influence across the world, really. You can look at what's going on in Brazil, arguably. All these areas where you're thinking, do you know what? The good guys aren't prevailing in terms of the Russia-Ukraine narrative. And Russia, Putin, is gaining in influence. And in here with Russian influence in Africa and their access to raw materials that will help them prop up the regime, their own regime, the Russian regime, and prosecute their war efforts. So this is a continued worry. Ukrainian retailers face big losses and disruptions due to Polish border blockade. So this is ongoing. A lawmaker has said that Polish exports through Ukraine, Poland border were down by 40% due to the blockade, and the blockade at the border caused a 40% decrease in Ukrainian exports through the relevant checkpoints. But also that it's a powerful blow to the economy in terms of costing 9.3 billion hryvnia, which is $254 million, due to unpaid customs tolls in November. And then you add on to that the cost to the economy in other ways, the increased prices, the loss of probably jobs, people being laid off if they're on 0 hours contracts, or kind of, if the goods aren't coming in, we don't need you to work in the warehouse today. So, this will have a deflationary or a recessionary pressure on the Ukrainian economy. This is not good. And then, of course, we talked earlier about how military aid is struggling to get through to Ukraine, having a 2-week delay. The copycat blocking of the Slovakia-Ukraine border has ended, according to Tim White, though. Truckers in Slovakia did follow their counterparts in Poland, who've continued actions with impunity, but various reports have linked organizers with Russia. So that's one thing. But also it appears to have stopped, at least in Slovakia. And there you go. That's enough from me for the third video for today. I've still got to do a frontline update, and I really want to do an extra today. I've got lots to say, as ever. Anyway, thank you so much for your support. Take care. Speak soon.